What's the worst way you know someone has died? A friend of my cousin had a fuel leak in his Jeep while on some back roads, coming back from fishing or something. He pulled over to work on it. It was cold out, and it's not clear how it happened, but the vehicle rolled onto his jacket near his chest and pinned him. From messages he attempted to send, but without cell service, it was apparent it was over 10 hours between when he was trapped and when he sent his last message. The cause of death was found to be hypoxia and possible cardiac arrest, meaning he didn't just get crushed. He was probably struggling to breathe the entire 10 or more hours until he became too exhausted. Also, it was in the cold at night, and it seems like cars probably drove past, but they would have just seen a Jeep sitting by the road. Sounds like a nightmarish way to go. Someone I know personally, my aunt, bled out after her dialysis access port in her arm ruptured. The worst because those few minutes alone had to have been terrifying. I've watched multiple people die of cirrhosis. End-stage alcoholism is horrifying. Yellow and delirious and thirsty, and incredibly itchy all over their body. Sad, ugly death. The smell is something that you don't forget. Guy I knew from younger years walked home from the bar rather than drive after having a couple. A drunk driving a pickup truck ran a red light, broadsided a sedan with an elderly driver who careered into the pole holding up the traffic signals. My friend was between the car and the pole, died when the car was pulled off the pole, but was awake and aware, knowing he would not survive when the car was removed. He was a wonderfully kind and considerate human, and it is so unfair that he died such a horrid death. Fucking incredibly sad and twistedly ironic. We used to live in an apartment building that had one of those elevators with kind of an accordion gate that you had to close yourself on the inside, and then at some point a self-closing door had been added on the outside. The elevator wouldn't go until both were closed. Well, there was a 7-year-old boy living in the building before we lived there who was playing hide and seek one day and decided to hide in between the inner gate and outer doors. Somebody called the elevator from another floor, and he basically got smushed as the elevator went up. Ironically, the self-closing outer doors were probably added for safety reasons. How awful. Could you imagine being the person that called the elevator and having the elevator arrive at your floor and what's left? Traumatizing for life. Woman in our family went to the doctor for body pain. Doctor put her down as opiate seeking, and that was that. Once that was on her chart, no doctor ever sought out any diagnosis, even though she went to many trying to find out why she was in severe pain all the time. 2 years later, she bumped her head and hurt her neck. One x-ray of her now broken neck revealed extensive bone cancer. She passed away a few days later. Something similar happened to my stepbrother. Went in over and over for pain only to be dismissed with no scans. One day he broke his leg normally walking. Finally got a scan, but by then it was all through his body. Passed a year later. My mill went in for months for digestive pain and was sent home 3 times with oxy. On the 4th time, someone actually took the time to do a scan, and she was rushed in for emergency surgery for multiple blood clots. Always demand the tests. My cousin and her family were struck by a semi after they pulled to the side of the road to change her son's diaper. They didn't know there was a baby in there until after the family asked if he was okay. Absolutely the saddest funeral I've ever seen. This reminds me of a recent story where a woman was giving birth in a moving vehicle when the vehicle was struck by another. They were on the freeway. Mother of mother-to-be was hysterical, saying that they couldn't find the baby. The cops, paramedics stopped traffic as random people helped and looked and trying to find the baby. A firefighter or paramedic found her. She was lodged underneath the seat. She was fine. I never intended to tell this story, and disclaimer, It's really bad. A friend of mine in the military was a crime scene photographer. He was called to a home of another military member that was deployed. The guy had a wife and a 2-year-old back home. The wife slipped in the shower and died. But that wasn't the worst part. The poor kid was still alive, and no one knew. The wife had been dead for weeks by the time they found her. The kid, on the other hand, had only recently died when they showed up. There was little fingernail scratches and bite marks on all the cabinets and pantry doors, but they were all child-proofed shut. He couldn't get to any food or water, so he died of starvation and dehydration. That really messed my buddy up for a long time, because he had to photograph all of it. My best friend was murdered. The guy pushed him in the back and, when he was on the ground, jumped on his head. The damage was so severe, all they could do was keep him under until he died. My cousin was murdered by her nutjob boyfriend. He stabbed her 36 times. There was a guy here that was up north, went outside of the cabin he was staying in, and got ambushed by not one, but 2 polar bears. Apparently, they told the guy's family not to buy a casket because there simply wasn't enough of him left to bury. A farmer put a bale in the bale buster, and it got hung up somehow. Instead of using the loader to push it down, he jumped on it while the machine was running. The bale came loose and the bale went through the buster and he followed. He was shredded into pieces. Farm accidents are some of the worst. So many things to catch you and tear you up. There was a video on YouTube of a guy who recorded his final moments while he sinks to the bottom of the ocean. I remember that one, it was awful. You see him scrambling to grab a hold of rocks and corals to slow his descent, but he just keeps sliding deeper as it gets darker and darker. If I remember correctly, after a certain depth, you stop being buoyant. And if your equipment fails, you just get pulled downwards and nothing can stop it. Motorcyclists that I saw die from decapitation. My grandfather, in perfect physical health, died of Alzheimer's. His body just forgot how to do everything. A neighbor who drove a gravel truck was in an accident where he hit something with the front of the truck. All the gravel broke through his cab and suffocated him to death. The Eggman, no clue what his real name was. He was a small farmer and delivered eggs to private homes. He rolled his tractor on him and crushed his middle section. His wife found him in the field because he was late for dinner. A woman I knew husband shot her in Essil in the face with a shotgun and then shot himself. The sister lived and took in their kids, grew up in a small farm country, lots of unnatural deaths. My uncle busted something in his ass while taking a shit and bled to death trying to crawl to his house phone. Wood chipper. 2 teenage girls were killed by a stalker in the town I lived in. Death really said, "Hold my beer." Got a story to top these? Comment below.